Born in Paris in November 1907, Henriette Theodora Markovich moved with her parents to Argentina when she was a young child. The reason for her father was an architect and he took commissions over there. In the mid-1920s, she returned to Paris, where she received artistic instruction at several institutions, as you can see stated below. It was during these years that she changed her name to Dora Maar. In 1932, she established a professional photographic studio with the set designer Pierre Keffer, producing work on commissions for fashion magazines, popular reviews, and commercial brands throughout the 1930s. In 1933, she became involved in surrealist circles, and her work was included in no less than 9 surrealism-oriented exhibitions during the decade. These included Tenerife, which was 1935, Paris, 1936, London, 1936, Tokyo, 1937, and Amsterdam in 1938. In 1936, she was introduced to Picasso, with whom she subsequently had a nine-year relationship with, the collapse of which resulted in her nervous breakdown. She lived in reclusion for much of the later decades of her life and concentrated her artistic efforts on painting. Although she did not return to the photographic medium in the 1980s, experimenting with camera-less photography to produce surreal, abstract compositions.
Maar's photography is best described as surrealist, eerie, and dreamlike. Early on, she used dramatic lighting, unique angles, and shadows to create depth and mystery in her work. Her time in France significantly shaped her approach and combined the spirit of street and commercial photography into her style. Her images are often open to interpretation, allowing them to be surreal yet grounded and not bound to conventionality. As mentioned by another photographer who said, her images are never forced into an alternative discursive frame, but remain free-floating, the full potential of their polysemy still intact. They can, in this sense, be both political and personal, surreal and real, documentary and revelatory. Here is an example of a portrait that was done while she was at Keffer's studio in 1935. During this shared time together, the two produced portraits as well as advertising and fashion work, and they would come to name it Dora Maar. As one critic noted, the surrealist movement had, by the 1930s, produced a range of bizarre imagery that had become quite fashionable.
Even though famed Spanish painter Pablo Picasso and Maar had met as early as 1935 on a movie set, introduced by Paul Eluard, Picasso apparently did not recall the encounter. The following year, she arranged an accidental meeting. Maar sat at a small table at the Café des Maguettes, knowing that it was a place Picasso frequently visited. She was playing a game where she stabbed a small knife between her fingers, and Picasso watched as she occasionally jabbed her fingers, and small drops of blood appeared on her lacy black gloves. This was brilliant to the narcissistic artist, and before long, the two began a love affair. Picasso depicted Maar numerous times, and she became famous as his model for the Weeping Woman, canvases made in various forms between 1937 and 1944. While some of his portraits showed her lively and puissant, most were tortured and distorted. Picasso stated once that he only ever remembered his lover as being in tears.
Besides being his muse, Maar often documented Picasso's work. Here's an example of his Guernica piece in 1937. Many people credit her for having record of his art process as a creative and believe these photos made history. Mentioned below, if we move forward in time, we can see how Dora was the first of a long list of photographers who are responsible for transmitting the artistic and personal intimacies of the painter.
In this image, we see a nicely manicured mannequin's hand protruding out of a large shell. The hand appears to be resting on a sandy beach. Behind the hand is a contradictory, bright yet overcast or cloudy sky. In describing her themes, Scoville from the Glossary magazine says, "Uncanny depictions of her preferred themes, the erotic, sleep, eyes, and the sea, reveal her affinity with the surrealists with whom she successfully exhibited throughout the decade." This quote does cover some of the themes seen in this image.
Self-portrait at the window. 1935, France. A moment of introspection captured through the lens of a self-portrait. Peering through the window, Maar presents a contemplative and melancholic expression within a pensive state of body language. Maar's work shows the influence of artist Jacqueline Lamba, who made surrealist paintings, and Henri Cartier-Bresson, whose snapshot, decisive moment, photography emphasized the importance of place, circumstance, and movement in photographic composition.
It has been said that surrealism balances a rational vision of life with one that asserts the power of the unconscious in dreams. The movement's artists find magic and strange beauty in the unexpected and the uncanny, the disregarded and the unconventional. At the core of their work is a willingness to challenge imposed values and norms and a search for freedom. Although it initially was a literary movement, it eventually became a cultural art movement. The movement aims to explore the dream world of the unconscious mind. It also challenges reality by using this dreamlike, bizarre imagery. Along with challenging reality, it also uses dreamlike imagery to expose hidden meanings or the truths that lie in the unconscious mind.